still logging on, which is perfectly fine. I'm going to go ahead and start covering some other things and some miscellaneous stuff. I hope everybody has been able to take the directions I sent on the listserv this morning and has gotten a Google SketchUp or SketchUp by Trimble, whatever it's called by now, account all set up. And like I said, if you want to follow along in SketchUp or try to, I understand that's not the easiest thing to be doing at a distance through Zoom like this, but if you'd like to try to follow along through the activity that we're going to be doing, feel free to. I will say that I don't know that we're really going to be able to stop too much if you do follow along and run into a stumbling block or have issues. I'd be happy to field some questions along the way, but for the sake of getting through everything that we need to, I'd be happy to work with you one-on-one individually after today's session, if you like. I will gladly set that up with you. We can compare calendars at some point, but I don't know that I'm going to be able to troubleshoot too much for you in the moment here today. All right. So before we get started, I just wanted to show a couple or sort of set the stage for what SketchUp can be used for, and kind of give you a little bit of a scope of its application. Google SketchUp is not something that is specifically designed for educators. Even with the free version, there's a free and a paid version. With the free version, you can do some amazing drawings. And just to set some context for that, I'm going to quickly share screen and show you some examples of things that a company has actually done. Okay, this photo right here, hope everybody can see it. This is a $247,000 backyard hardscape project from down in the Selinsgrove area. This is actually right adjacent to Selinsgrove Airport, if you're familiar with the area down there. Again, $247,000 backyard hardscape. And this job was sold with a 3D drawing done on the free version of Google SketchUp. Another one right here, this is down in the Halifax area. This one was, I believe, $238,000, so a little bit less, but this picture doesn't show everything. But again, sold on a free, a drawing done on a free version of Google SketchUp. So there is definite application for this out in the world, as you'll see in the activities that I've come up with that to give you a head start with your students on this, as far as an assignment for them to practice and apply their skills in Google SketchUp. I can tell you from experience when teaching that certain businesses, metal fabrication companies of all different sizes, JLG lifts down in Franklin County, lots and lots and lots of different size companies are using or doing some sort of in-house 3D prototype or project drawing. And what they've found is, A, they can save some money, but instead of outsourcing their drafting and drawing to third-party companies. And in addition to that, if there's a problem in an original design, they can change it in the design right there in-house. They don't have to stop production on something and contact their design firm and say, hey, part X is not fitting with part W correctly. They can go right in under the project plan and change specs, change measurements, change pieces of a design in-house, which gives them a tremendous amount of increased flexibility. So your students leaving your program, leaving your classes, graduating from your schools, just knowing how to 3D draw in any platform is is a valuable skill in today's workforce. And I'm not going to tell you that Google SketchUp's the very best that's out there, and it's not the best that's out there. There's a ton of other, paid for licensed 3D drawing platforms out there. SolidWorks is one that I have also had experience with as a teacher. It's expensive, and to be quite honest, it's a little bit cumbersome to utilize. Now, I know that it has gone through a number of generations of revision and upgrade, so I have not used the most recent version, but I understand, or I can tell you from experience that like generation 2, 3, 4 of that software, it was kind of tough to navigate. And I believe a licensure costs somewhere in the neighborhood of $3,000 or something like that. But again, that's a platform that's used in industry. And if we had Ryan King on this morning down at Lancaster Mennonite, Ryan has been tasked this year with teaching a drafting class, which he had never done before. And that was on SolidWorks. And Ryan seconded my opinion that while SolidWorks has a lot of really fancy bells and whistles, and don't get me wrong, high schoolers leaving a program or leaving a school knowing how to use SolidWorks is fantastic, but it's a little bit tough for high school level students to grasp certain processes. And in addition, Google SketchUp, as you're finding out, and hopefully you were all able to make accounts, when a student leaves your program, if they learn SolidWorks on one of your school computers and they leave your program and graduate, they don't have your SolidWorks anymore. Whereas with Google SketchUp, they create an online account, it's cloud-based, and they can continue to access and create drawings for free anywhere they have an internet connection, even after they graduate. So anyway, I'm going to pull up the activity that I'm going to lead you all through here, and you're going to have access to all of this after the fact. Well, you have access to this document that I'm going to show you now right away. That if for those of you that just joined, there's a link to this in the chat box. It's a tiny URL link. If you'd like to follow along, feel free. If you'd like to actually try to follow me in SketchUp and do what I'm doing and kind of follow the procedures here, feel free to. I will tell you that might be a little bit cumbersome to listen and navigate, trying SketchUp at the same time. But at the top there, you have the directions that I sent out on the listserv this morning. That's to help you help your students get accounts set up. And then what I did is I just made note of every step that needs to be taken. And then I snipped out images of the different buttons that need to be clicked on, dimensions that need to be put in at certain steps, so that after we leave here today, you're left with a good guide. And if you need to pass this along or would like to pass this along to students, to get their feet wet with some of the more common features of SketchUp, that there's some real self-guidance built into this activity. Okay, so I'm going to put that away for the time being. Lisa, I'll reshare it here. The link to that document I just shared is right there in the chat box for anybody that just joined on. That'll all of the stuff that I'm going to show you today is in a Google folder that I'll share to everybody on the call when we're done here today. All right, now I need to swap windows around here and get set up. Okay. Okay, this is what we did as a result of this during this morning's session. So I saved that. But so when you go ahead and log into your Google SketchUp account, if you just follow the steps, and you should hit a spot like I indicate in the instructions. It says start modeling or get modeling or something like that. It'll take you to a page that looks like this. There's a lot of different apps that this Trimble or whoever owns SketchUp at this point has. But what you want is the SketchUp for web, which is the cloud-based app version. And again, it says right there, free. This is also how you access the premium options that you can purchase that go along with this. So you just click launch, and this should bring up a new drawing screen. Oh, so here's a couple examples I'll share with you in a second. So we want to create a new one, and I like to work in feet and inches just because it's more realistic. So every time you start a new drawing, you're going to come to a screen that looks like this. There's this nicely dressed lady standing there. You don't need that. She's just there to show you reference. So we just delete her out because she distracts me. But it doesn't. So these are your coordinate planes, and she was just there as a reference to show which way is technically up and down. But I'll show you in a little bit. It really doesn't matter in which plane you build in, because you can spin this whole little build world that we're in right now to be oriented however you need to after the fact. So she's really not necessary. Okay, so now I'm going to go step by step through the directions in that document that I was just showing you previously. And if you're following along, we're going to start at step 1. And I got to look at this on my phone because I can't have that open while I'm in SketchUp, or I can't see SketchUp. So step 1, open up a new SketchUp file. We did that. So now we're at step 2. We're going to build just a basic building structure here. So we work predominantly over here in this left-hand toolbar. This button right here, it says rectangle, but it's actually the key button to open up a lot of other different buttons. As you can see, we have rectangle, circle, arc, different polygons, but we want just a regular old rectangle. So I'm selecting rectangle, and as you can see, that turned my mouse cursor. Oh, I should back up. A question that came up this morning, a little bit before the point we're at now. You can do this. Obviously, it's web-based, it's cloud-based on any device that has an internet connection. iPad, Chromebook, I think, but I'm not entirely sure what a Chromebook is. Laptop computer, desktop computer. I will say that laptops, a true laptop, which I think a Chromebook is kind of like that, but I'm not entirely sure again. Laptop, desktop computer, and an external mouse is your best friend with this. You can do it on a Surface or an iPad or some sort of touchscreen device. But as you'll see, when you need to touch pretty precise points in your drawing, it becomes a little bit cumbersome to be using a finger. A stylus would be a tremendous help if you have to use a tablet. A stylus coupled with an external keyboard would also be helpful. But if you and your students can be using external mice, I guess is the right way to put that, that's tremendously helpful. All right, so first thing we're going to do is lay out a plain old rectangle. And to do that, I'm going to just start it all at my intersection of all these different planes here. And I'm going to click once and release, okay? I'm not clicking the mouse button down, right? I clicked once and released. And now I'm not holding any buttons down. I'm just moving the mouse around, right? And I can click in anywhere I want at this point. I'm just going to put a random rectangle, down. So I'm not touching anything, okay? Here's my hands. So down here in this measurement box, I'm not clicking in it, okay? I've put a shape down, and now SketchUp is ready for me to tell it what the dimensions of that shape should be, what I want them to be. So I'm not clicking in the box, okay? I'm just going to start typing on my keyboard. And according to the instruction sheet here, oh, I lied. I better back up. I got distracted because I thought there was something out there. So I'm not touching anything now. I'm just going to start typing. 35 feet. And you can see it's inputting those dimensions down here in the measurement window. 35 feet, comma, 25 feet.
Hey, John,
Yeah.
quick question. Where is the instruction sheet that you're following? I looked on the email, but I didn't find it there
There's a link. I put a link in the chat box.
in the chat box. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, so I've input it in my dimensions, and all I'm going to do now is hit enter on my keyboard and watch what happens to the rectangle. Okay, it automatically resized it to scale and made it 35. Oop, that's not what I wanted. Made it 35 feet by 25 feet. Okay, and Marty Heiler brought up a great question this morning. Here you go, Amy. I'll resend it here. Brought up a great question, which is a great opportunity to show you another handy feature in SketchUp. So if you come over here to the left-hand toolbar, there's this tape measure button. And again, that's just a key button that opens up a bunch of other features. But we actually do want the tape measure button. So if I don't remember what the dimensions were of anything in here, I take my tape measure, I click, and as you see there, it tells you in the window that's 25 in the down here in the length button, or in the length window, that's 25 feet right there. So if you ever forget a dimension that's in your design, you can always just measure it. Like in real life, you grab a tape measure and measure it. All right. So that's step number 2A and 2B. We drew a basic rectangle and put in the measurements 35 feet, comma 25 feet to create a 25 by 35 foot rectangle. You might notice I'm zooming here. Again, one of the perks of having an external mouse, I'm zooming with the scroll button on the mouse. You can zoom in and out using the little magnifying glass button down here, but that's sort of a pain. So if you have an external mouse with a scroll button, you can just scroll back and forth to zoom in and out. So my next step is I'm going to select the push-pull tool, which is right here, one of the most commonly used buttons in SketchUp. I'm going to select it, and I do want the push-pull tool. We're going to use this guy down here later, but for now I want the push-pull tool. I'm going to click on the surface of my rectangle. I'm not holding anything down again. I'm just going to move the mouse, moving it back and forth, and now I'm going to create, this is where the 3D part comes in. So I'm just going to randomly click to release, right? I just clicked the mouse button to release, dragging it. And now, as you might expect, down in the distance box, SketchUp wants me to tell it how high do I want to extrude or pull that rectangle. So in the box, as per the instructions, I'm going to enter 10 feet, enter, and it's going to automatically resize it. So now I have a 35 by 25 by 10 foot block, okay? And again, we're going to build a basic structure here. Okay, so now we did step 3 and 4 and 5. And step 6 now tells me I want to spin. So you've seen me use this a couple times. The very bottom button in our left-hand toolbar opens up these features, which the orbit, the drag or pan, so that I can grab my drawing and pull it back and forth and up and down. If I wanted to get this centered, the zoom tool and to zoom the whole window in, but I want to orbit it. Okay, and all I'm doing, I'm clicking and holding my mouse button right now, and now my drawing follows my mouse movements. I am holding the mouse button down at this point, right? And as per my instructions, I'm turning the building so that I'm looking at it from one of the ends. Either end, it doesn't matter, okay? So now what we're gonna do, the next couple steps are about making the roof. And I'm gonna pull my drawing down a little bit just because I think we'll be out of view after a while. So as per the instructions, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select the line tool from the left-hand toolbar. And much like all the others over there, it gives you a couple options, a straight line and a freehand line. We want the straight line, okay? So I'm not touching any buttons. Here's my mouse hand. If I just wanted to show you that when you touch it to an intersection, the dot turns green to make you aware that you are directly at the intersection of those lines. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click once. Okay. I'm not holding the button down. Click once, and I'm going to move across this top edge until I hit the midpoint. And I know I hit the midpoint because I get that blue dot and a little message that says midpoint. So I'm going to click again. And what it doesn't show you is that it drew a line from the corner to the midpoint there. Oh, I have a touchscreen computer and I just forgot about that. It drew a line from this corner to that corner. Okay. Now my next, so right there, it shows you there's the end point of my line and it's at the midpoint of the top edge of the roof. So I'm going to click again and I'm going to go straight up. And if you notice, my line that I'm drawing is blue, showing me that I am going straight up and down in parallel to my blue axis line for my XYZ coordinates there. So I'm just going to click again. Okay. I click to release it. And as you might expect, Google SketchUp is waiting for me to say, hey, how long do you want that line to be? Well, we want that line to be 5 feet. Okay, we're going to make a roof that has an apex that's 5 feet tall above the building. So I put in 5 foot, hit enter, and it adjusts my line to be 5 feet. Now this is the really cool part, or one of the really cool things about SketchUp. It kind of knows what you're trying to do. So now all I need to do is click at my endpoint there and go back to my original corner point, click again, and it drew a solid triangle, right? Now the next couple steps in your step-by-step direction sheet, they're going to tell you to repeat steps 7 through or 8 through 11, and I'm going to demonstrate that for you here. So once again, if I just start at the top of my roof point and come over here to this corner at the top of my building, now you sort of have the resemblance of a roof line, okay? But now SketchUp acknowledges this as 2 separate halves of a roof divided by that one line that we use to get our roof height. So I'm going to click off of it there. The next step, which is in your step-by-step directions, sort of gets students comfortable with one of the many ways. And like you're going to see, and I'll tell you, for many of the things that we do, there's more than one way to do it. There is no right way or wrong way, but there's multiple ways to get to the same end. So I can click that blue, I can click that line, turn it blue, hit delete on my keyboard or backspace, and it'll delete it. All right. I can also come over here and use this eraser button. And this is the step in the directions that tells your students to do this to get them comfortable with how to erase elements out of the design. So I'm going to click the eraser button and I'm going to come over here. I'm going to click and hold. I'm now holding down my mouse button, click and hold, and I'm going to pass this eraser over top of that blue line, or over top of that line. And you see how it turned it blue? So I'm now going to let go, and it erased it as soon as I let go of the mouse button. So I can go ahead and I can just delete all of this by clicking the eraser button down, holding it and moving over it. And then as soon as I let it go, it's going to erase everything I did. Okay. So that's just one way. Like I said, there's a couple different ways to delete things out of here. That's just one of them. So now my directions tell me that I need to orbit, and I'm going to orbit so that I'm kind of looking at the inside of the roof there. And what I now need to do is I need to cover this entire building with a roof. So again, I'm going to come to my push-pull tool. Notice how the inside of my roof triangle fills in or becomes dotted. I'm going to click and I'm not holding it. I'm not holding the mouse button down. And it's now going to follow my mouse as I pull the roof across the top of my building. Now I'm going to click just to release it right there. And as you can see, I didn't quite make it all the way across. But again, SketchUp is waiting for me to tell it how far do you want to pull that shape across the top of your design. Well, if you remember, our building was 35 feet long. So we need the roof to cover 35 feet long of a distance. So 35 foot, hit enter. And now you know that your roof is all the way covering from one end of the building to the next, right? Any questions about anything I've done so far? Okay. Let me just find where we are here on the directions. Okay. So we're dealing with a computer platform, a software platform that can create some really realistic looking designs, project plans, building designs, landscape designs, you name it. So yeah, now we have something that looks like a building, but why should we stop there, right? Don't most buildings have roof overhang or eaves, right? So again, there's a couple different ways we can do this. But for the sake of getting your students exposed to a number of the different features of SketchUp, we're going to orbit, right? And we're going to orbit in such a way that we're now looking up through the bottom of our building, okay? And now what it tells you to do is come to the offset tool, which is not there. It's under the push-pull button. Come to this, select this offset button, and as you'll hopefully see in the step-by-step guide, that I've snipped images of each of the buttons that needs to be pushed at each of the steps, or clicked, selected at each step. So I'm going to choose offset, and what this does is, you'll see here in a second, I'm clicking, and now I'm not holding any buttons down. Here's my mouse hand. Now as I move my mouse inward, it's going to create an offset shape to this rectangle that is the bottom of my house. I can do an inward offset, or I can extend way, way, way off of it. Okay, and I'm just going to do this as an example of why you might want to do this. Let's say I wanted to put a yard around my house or building, whatever it is we're making. So now when I click, it automatically filled the area immediately around that that building. And now I can make this grass, I can make this concrete, I can make this asphalt, whatever I wanted to do. But I'm going to back that up again because I want to show you why or how to use the offset feature to create building eaves quickly and easily. Now, this is a step that is a little bit difficult for some students to comprehend, and it's a little bit difficult to explain, which is good. It's good that you're able to watch and follow along. So I'm going to click again, and it's now asking in my measurement window or my distance window, how far do you want to offset that inner shape from the outer shape? So I'm going to type in there, back it up, 1 foot. Okay, and this is going to create 1 foot of roof overhang all the way around the building here in a second. I hit enter, and you can see it automatically adjusted the offset between those two rectangles. So I'm going to orbit now again, just so you can see what this ends up doing. And again, there's more than one way to do this. This is just, it kind of all depends on how you see the different processes and how you see, your drawing. So now I see this as I have this inner rectangle, and I have, oh, not there. I have this outer sort of frame that was created. So if I spin this and I come back over here to my push-pull tool, I'm gonna grab that, and I'm not clicking the mouse button down. It's just following my mouse, right? So I'm gonna move that upwards, and I'm gonna click to release it. And now this is where some of the thought comes in. If you remember, we made this building 10 feet tall originally without the roof. So if I drag this all the way up to the very bottom of the roof, it's actually gonna make it disappear. So I wanna drag the sides of this building up just an inch below where the roof starts. So in my distance window, I'm going to put 9 feet, 11 inches and hit enter. As you can see, it takes the outside of my building all the way up to the roof line and stops just short. Right? Now I have building eaves all the way around my structure. Okay, now it looks as though somehow we've lost the end of our building, which is no problem. And I'll show you how to fix something like that. Again, super easy in SketchUp. I'm going to come over here and select my line tool. I'm going to click on that corner, click up here, and it automatically filled it back in for me, right? So there you go. Now we have something that's really starting to resemble a building, okay? I believe that is, yep, the next step on the step-by-step guide says about adding doors, windows, house coverings, etc. And it shows 2 buttons, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. But this is kind of where the formalized instructions can stop, because this is kind of going to be dependent on what everybody wants to do. So the 2 buttons that I'm talking about are now found over here on this right-hand toolbar. And there's a whole host of different things over here. This is the instructor where you can get, where you or your students can get help with any process or thing that you're trying to do in SketchUp. We have the components, we have the materials, which we're going to talk about here in a second. Styles, I'm not entirely sure what that even does, but you can tag different parts of the drawing. You can look at your drawing under different views. And what I'll just show you here, if I select top view, it's going to show me the very top of my drawing. I can change the field of view. I can say I want to look at it from this angle, from that angle, so on. And the really fun part about this is you can take this is really good for, like, if you want to show the inside of a building design or like a landscape. You can select the movie view and follow with your mouse, like if you have a walkway going through a garden or a landscaped area, and it will generate, SketchUp will generate a movie or a video from the perspective of somebody walking through that landscape. The same is true for like a structure. If I would hollow the inside of this building out and put some furniture and put some walls in there, I could actually take somebody through a virtual walk through the inside of the structure that I'm designing. And then there's a couple other elements here that I've never used and I'm not familiar with. But so in the component section here, okay, let's say we want to put a wooden door in or on our structure. This takes us to what's called the SketchUp 3D warehouse, which is sort of a file sharing database of all kinds of different drawings and designs of stuff that, other people, normally people that know what they're doing more so than I, and they're 100% free to use. So all I'm going to do is click it, and it's going to give it to me to use in my model. Okay, so I just clicked to release there, and now I got windows in the way. Now this can be sometimes a little bit frustrating because, as you see there, it didn't put it exactly. Where I wanted it to. But if I select the move tool, there it is. That tells me it's on the face of the building now. And I just move it around a little bit. So without any effort whatsoever, I have a door on my building now. A pretty nice looking door at that, right? And if I wanted to put a window on this structure now, okay, let's just take this plain Jane looking window and stick it right there on the face of our building. Let's just double check that that's on there, and it is. Very good. So now I have some pretty realistic looking features added within seconds of just stealing them out of the 3D warehouse. And if I wanted to, I can make this a different size, not like that. Oh. All right, well, just trust me. I don't know why it's not working right now, but you can resize the objects that you pull out of the 3D warehouse any size that you want. It's as simple as it. I'm not sure why it's not doing it, but it'll have these green grab handles, and all you do is, much like resizing pictures in a Word document or something, you just click the green handle in the corner and drag it in and out, and it'll expand or shrink the object proportionally to itself to make it bigger or smaller. Well, I don't know why it's not working with this window right now. So that's the components section or feature that brings you to the 3D warehouse. The other part here is the materials, okay? And if we come here to search, it'll bring up a whole host of different housing coverings, roof coverings, landscape and vegetation. So let's just put some roofing materials on here. And we did the brown shingles in the last group. So let's put a terracotta roof on this house. It's as simple as selecting the material, brings you this little paint bucket, and then just click where you want it. Okay. And now we need to put some siding on. Let's make this an ugly brick house. Okay. And all you got to do is spin it, select the material that you want. Okay. Can't get that little sliver right there. Okay. So, I mean, I can make this house out of metal. I can make it out of plastic. I can make it out of different woods pretty quickly and easily. And now I'm going to get this out of the way and bring our structure back into view there. Okay. Any questions about anything I've done so far? And that's what that basic introductory activity walks you through, walks your students through how to, basically how to just how to create a basic house or structure, okay, which feeds right into the activity, the assignment activities that I came up with for you. Okay, let's put some grass in here real quick, finish off our okay, finish off. There we go. There you go. There's some grass. Any questions about that so far? There's just a real crude structure to help your students get your feet wet with using some of the basics features that are commonly used. Amy, are you okay sharing this recording with other teachers such as building? Yeah, absolutely. If it helps them, fantastic. And if they have any questions, they can feel free to contact me. Any other questions at this point? Got a couple more things to show you here quick. So you're also going to have access to, didn't want to make that full screen. You're going to have access to, stop making it full screen. You're going to have access to some other quick examples that I've thrown together from different teaching things. I drew this bolt just as a quick example at one point of a non-house related thing. You can literally draw anything that you want to. And the cool thing about this is I'll show you about exporting here in a second. So these have all been exported out of SketchUp as PNG or image files. However, if I would export this as an STL file, I can 3D print this bolt that I drew in SketchUp. So lots of different applications and cool things that you can do with it. Okay, there's another, basic house. Just shows some of the features, such as you can change the time of day, you can change the angle of the sun, you can change the time of the year.
Can I ask a question?
Yep, go ahead.
Since we're in this field, I would use it more as landscaping. Is it possibility to get houses that are already done and then have the students work on this using landscaping?
Absolutely. You can find house designs in the 3D warehouse, and then just pull them into a create a yard, pull a house in, plop it there, and say, there you go, landscape that pretty quickly and easily.
So how do I get the students into this? Like I saw that I have.
Yep, they each have to create their own account. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, and that's why I gave you the instructions. That they're at the top of that intro sheet, and they're the same ones that I sent out on a listserv this morning, so that you have guidance to help your students, to guide your students to create their own account. And that's the beautiful thing is once they have their account, they have their account forever. As long as SketchUp is made free, they can draw and use it for the rest of their lives, as long as SketchUp doesn't change anything long after the fact, after they've left your program. Yep. Okay. Some other quick examples. That's this is the same house, just showing like the back patio area there. Another hardscape design with a pool. Okay. Now I will tell you, obviously, without anything else around it, this probably took about 1 to 2 hours to do. Creating all the pillars. And one thing is I created one pillar and I just copy and paste it. It's the same as copying and pasting in a Word document. I just right click on the item and hit duplicate, and I can create as many different copies of the same structure as I want, and then place them around, and then I drag the fence around there and create the swimming pool. So, if this was an actual, if I was doing an actual landscape design, it would probably take a good solid 8+ hours to do a really, really simple basic one if I was drawing the house and everything. But I mean, those $250,000 hardscapes, those took days and days and days and days and days of work to finish. Okay. So real quick, I saw that there was a comment in the chat box, but I just wanted to go over the assignments really quickly that I came up that you can take and implement right in your classes. You have access to these through the Google folder that I'm going to share with you after the fact. I did one for every ag content: animal science, plant science, wildlife, and ag mechanics. So the animal science one, a lot of them are about facility design and drawing. It requires your students to do a little bit of research in addition to actually the drawing. So here for the animal science one, and they all contain the same basic blurb of the importance of 3D drawing and how it's used and so on. The actual assignment tells them to design an animal housing facility of their choice for a species of their choice. However, they must draw it and create it as detailed and realistic as possible. So for instance, if they're going to do a horse stable that's supposed to safely and humanely accommodate 10 horses, well, then their drawing needs to reflect a facility that it has the square footage and the appropriate number of stalls and so on to accommodate 10 horses. And that they should also include specialized areas such as, calving pens, a tack room, a milk house, depending on the facility and the species that they're designing for. They need to include the dimensions of it, which I will show you here in a second about that. That's one thing I didn't cover when I was showing you the live drawing. The number of animals that it can house, and what it is made of. If you're going to make posts that are made out of wood, it needs to be reflected as actual wood. If it's going to have metal siding, then the outside of it should be made of metal siding. If there's ventilation fans, show the ventilation fans. And you can easily pull all of this out of the 3D warehouse. So it's not like they're probably going to be a little bit leery, like, you mean I got to draw all that? No, just take it out of the 3D warehouse. Show access routes. I mean, buildings are typically not just out in the middle of the matrix. Show roadways leading up to them. Show sidewalks. Show doors, both overhead and human man entry doors. Put windows on it. Structures don't have windows or are not windowless. So I would advise them to hollow it out, which I can show you quickly how to hollow out a structure quickly. And just as an added bonus, I know some districts are at a point where bonus points and bonus work and stuff are a no-no. But you can take all these assignments and adjust them and tweak them however you like to best suit your students and your needs. But put some trees in there, put some actual animals in the facility. If it's a dairy barn, put some dairy cows walking around. If it's a horse stable, put some horses around. Put a tractor, put a car. Put a little bit of realism into it. So that's the animal one. The plant science horticulture one is much the same, except this has them building and designing a greenhouse for crops of their choice. Again, they should need to determine the square footage, and the dimensions of it should actually reflect that square footage. They should determine the type, what it's going to be made out of. Is it going to be glass? Is it going to be plastic? Include doors, ventilation fans, ventilation tubes, so on and so forth, heaters. They should have growth benches and tables and stuff included. Again, show some plants in it if it's a greenhouse, you know, put a little bit of detail in it. For the wildlife natural resources, I have them drawing and designing a wildlife support structure. So a barn owl box, a deer feeder stand, some other type of bird house, you know, whatever you have covered or talked about or want them to discover, come up with a drawing plan for it and make it realistic. So I have in here that the dimensions of the structure should be as real as possible. So if the Pennsylvania Game Commission says that barn owl boxes should be 5 feet by 5 feet by 3 feet, then their drawing should be 5 feet by 5 feet by 3 feet. They obviously need to show the access points. There needs to be a hole for the barn owl to get in and out of the box. Utilize the appropriate building materials. If it's going to be made out of wood, make it out of wood in a drawing. And again, showing some examples of actual animals perhaps living inside of it, or deer feeding at the feeder box or something. And then the ag mechanics and welding, sort of a two choice here. Either do a mechanical type facility design, draw their dream woodworking shop, draw their dream mechanical shop, draw their dream welding and fabrication shop. Or if there's a project plan, like a welding project that they would like to design, draw it in SketchUp, show the dimensions of it in SketchUp. And I'll show you that here in a second. But a couple, you know, guidelines down here regarding each, you know, they should take great care in determining where welders are going to be placed, where gas cylinders should be stored, where, you know, welding rods might get stored. Put a cabinet in there. I have some examples. There's tons of different shelving units and cabinets in the 3D warehouse. They can easily pull that out. There are welders in the 3D warehouse, both Miller and Lincoln, you know, so they can actually show welders in their welding shop if that's what they decided to do. But again, if they're going to draw a project, if it's made out of metal, they should draw it out of metal in SketchUp. If it's going to be made out of wood, draw it out, you know, make it in wood in SketchUp. Include ventilation if it's a welding shop, things like that. Put windows, put workbenches, you know, put some tool chests in there. I have in here the actual, if it's going to be a project, that they should show the dimensions of each piece of the project in the drawing, as well as label the weld types as well as the fastener types that are used whenever two pieces get joined together. So in their drawing, you shouldn't see two pieces butted up against one another without a label saying, hey, there's 4 flathead machine screws holding this together, or a T-weld, you know. And I'll show you how to label that stuff here in a second. And also a project bill of materials should accompany the project drawing if that's what they're going to do. Okay. So I'll get back here to SketchUp real quick and show you how to include dimensions on your drawing. So if you come back down here to the same bars, the same button as the tape measure, the one immediately below that is the dimensions feature. I'm just going to click, let go, click, let go. Look at that. It shows me how, it showed me, I had it. It showed me how tall my roof pitch was. That, you know, my roof was 5 foot tall, but there it is. Okay. So I just clicked and dragged off, and there it is. It shows my roof height. I can show my actual building height. Click, click, drag it out. Shows it's 9 feet, 11 inches. I can show how wide it is, right? So that's how you incorporate project dimensions into the drawing. And if I want to put a label of something in there, okay, I'm just going to click right there on my roof peak. And I'm going to put a note in there that just says roof apex. Oop, and click off of it, and it puts that label in my drawing. Okay, I can label what material that's made of. I can talk about what fasteners are being used to hold that together, so on and so forth. Just real quick, because I know we're running short on time, just to prove to you, right there are some Lincoln welders. So if I wanted to put a welding machine in my weld shop, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Lets the student focus more on thinking about the placement and the layout and the arrangement of a facility, more so than causing them the stress of trying to recreate a realistic looking welding machine to incorporate in their drawing. Okay, that is planned options. I'll show you that here in a second. Let's just say Hosta in the 3D warehouse. Okay, so now I have some hostas. Okay, and I'm going to duplicate it and paste it. Okay, so I can really quickly throw a bunch of hostas into my design. Come on, stick there. Okay.
We can't see your screen.
Let's see. Daisies. Okay. Some daisies.
We can't see
Stop
your
sharing your
Oh,
screen.
I'm not sharing my screen.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So you didn't see me copy or paste any of those hostas in there. That's
We did not.
okay. Well, just trust me. I came in here and I just typed hosta and I took the first one that I saw, but you can see there's a nice, blue hosta, lots of different options. Let's see. Oh yeah, there's some black-eyed Susans that you can incorporate in. There's literally, I'd say probably millions of different images that people have done and put into the 3D warehouse. Can't guarantee that every plant that you're going to want to incorporate in there is there. But I'd say 90% of the plants, the common plants you could think of, people have put in there because people are doing the exact same thing, for businesses, putting plants, as realistic plants into the landscape. Okay, any questions about anything I went over? I know that's a lot of me talking at you. If you were trying to follow along with me, I know that's a tough thing to do. And if you would like individual help, getting a little bit more confident in using SketchUp, I'd be happy to work with you one-on-one. You can contact me and we can set that up. But if there's no other questions, that's all that I had. I will forward these assignment, the different activities to you in the follow-up email. And if you're, yeah.
What about using, like when I teach building design, like facility design, that's when I teach them scale. Like how would you teach them scale using this?
Well, you don't need to, and that's sort of one of the beautiful parts of it is it'll scale things for you.
Okay.
There's a, let's see. Where is it? Why can't I do that? Oh, select. No, it's over here on the toolbar.
You stop sharing your screen again, John.
You're not seeing it. Well, it's all right. I'm not funny. There's a feature in here that you click and like shift. If you click and shift, so that you can kind of click one object and lock it, and click another object and sort of lock both of them. You can create scale between different objects in the design just with this one feature. I don't use it a whole lot because I just my experience in this is creating realistic, using realistic dimensions from the field. But you can scale objects using a feature that's it's in one of these buttons here along the side. To answer that question, Kelly. But they don't have to think, they don't have to do the calculations to scale a measurement from one to the next. It will do it for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
Hi, John. This is Darla.
Yep.
Just a quick question about the time investment you think it will take if I give that student the handout that you made for like
Yep.
their first time like ever using it, because eventually I want to work up and do like a welding project with my
Yep.
kids. But I would like to give them a practice first. Do you think that assignment you've given them would easily take like an hour to
Yep.
2 hours?
And I forgot to mention that. I think between the introductory assignment and then the free choice activities, you can easily finish out your school year. If the student takes it seriously, and if they are supposed to devote about 30 minutes, a day to your class, like most school districts are doing, they could easily spend the rest of their school year finishing this. But by the same token, if a student decides to do a 3D drawing of like the oh so common C-clamp project, that's not going to take them for the rest of the year. But if they want to do a really detailed facility design, that could easily take for the rest of the school year.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording here.